All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Friday. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, how's it going, Michael?
Good, man. So, Friday, September 1st, we're going into Labor Day weekend, which is the unofficial start of summer. But as we all know, the weather is sometimes better and nicer in September and October than it is sometimes in the early season.
Yeah, I know I don't speak for everyone, and maybe it's the minority, but I'm a little done with the 100-degree weather, if I'm being honest with you, man. I had my fill. It's been
Yeah.
nice. It's been real. Let's
Yeah.
get back to some like, mid 70s, high 60s. Yeah, I don't want to I want to watch football and have some nachos. I don't want to like sweat out the cheese here, right? So let's have a good time, guys, ready for fall.
Yeah. And
Um,
we had a couple of preseason games. We had Kansas City and we had Denver. Both of them won. So
yeah.
that was huge.
Yeah, the Broncos offense can, at least against the twos, seemingly score. So we'll see. But yeah, no, it's definitely give Labouille hope.
Yeah.
I was sorry to see Kendall Hinton got cut, unfortunately. He's, obviously not, anyone's all-star receiver, but it was a really cool story when he stepped up and played quarterback for Denver when the whole quarterback room got COVID that one year.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully he had a good few years, maybe makes a practice squad somewhere. But yeah, that was a bummer to see this morning.
Yeah, no. So I
Yeah.
get it. So so a couple of weeks ago, we did a mid-year mojo,
We
right?
did.
Mid-year reset. We had a couple of vendors come in, had a great discussion with our agents. We also had a little summer social, casual event, just kind of private, right?
Mhm.
Part of that theme was about all the things that we can do and all the things that we can control,
Mhm.
almost like controlling the controllables, right?
Exactly.
So I thought maybe today would be a good, just you and I touch base a little bit. And then also we're having some discussions and we're having some strategy sessions about being in a build mode versus a contraction mode, right? Which means things like looking at opportunities with our own clients, looking at opportunities with our agents. We're looking at opportunities to grow our brokerage, right?
Mhm.
There's a lot of things that we're kind of in the middle of that we think as we're kind of getting toward the end of the summer, getting ready to go into the fall, this might be a good time to start having some of that dialogue, right? So, with regard to kind of the big the big thing on the news, right? I mean, people are just kind of wrapped around the axle with regard to where the interest rates are sitting right today. We know it's a cycle. We know it's somewhat temporary, but some of the things that we've been talking about are what can we do, right? So we did an amazing job the last 36 months finding our buyers the right houses in the right neighborhoods at the right transaction, right? But a lot
Mhm.
of them, they don't necessarily want to sell their house, right? But they have maybe a ton of equity in that property, right? And they want to put that money to work for them potentially, right? So that's one option.
Yeah, definitely, guys. And there's a lot of ways to assess that. I think that, I think real estate agents, realtors here are as guilty of this as anybody.
Right.
When we think about how to do a real estate transaction, we think of like, hey, what's going on in my state? Maybe, but more often it's what's going on in my town or even my neighborhood, right? Because when we think about moving, we think about, well, what am I paying for my mortgage currently? Am I going to be able to keep the same, my kids going to be able to go to the same school? Am I going to have my drive to work go longer? Am I going to have this and that? When it's like, those are all perfectly viable questions. But, if you also take a step back and say like, hey, maybe the mortgage rates right now are not such that I want to take on a totally new mortgage, or I don't want to get rid of my current home if I don't have to. But there are ways to leverage your current equity in your home and maybe buy an investment property somewhere. Or, I mean, that you can do in with our market here as agents in Windermere. I mean, we are by ourselves in, 11 states and really can represent the whole Western United States. But even across the country, across the world, guys, the realtor network is very, very broad. It's very, very robust. And we all took the same ethical oath. So it's okay, agents out there, if your clients are like, oh man, hey, I know I have $400,000 in equity, but I don't want to leave. I like my house and the mortgage rates are at, north of 7%. And, well, then maybe we look at doing maybe some sort of home equity line of credit, right? That would have would impact your mortgage, but it wouldn't impact to the level of buying a whole new mortgage. And you could take that money and go look and buying an investment property somewhere. Maybe it's a investment slash vacation property, right? It could be in Colorado, it could be across the country. Lean on your network and be creative, right? So our clients right now are kind of in an odd spot. And again, not everyone is going to fall in this category, but a significant number have quite a bit of equity, but their mortgage rate is very, very good, right? Like I think half the country or half of mortgage owners are under 3%. this is an extremely good mortgage that you'll probably never going to get again. Right. So I understand the hesitation to get rid of it. Right. But there's nothing to say that you can't take some of the equity without giving up that mortgage in total, right? And use that equity to buy an investment property cash somewhere else.
Right.
That could be a fun place to go visit. Maybe you do talk to one of your agent friends in Florida and they buy a cool beach house down there. Maybe it's a mountain house in Colorado. Maybe it's a mountain house in Montana, where I'm going, where I'm at this weekend. You never know, right? You could look at markets that aren't quite as expensive as Colorado as well and make a pure investment. I have clients that have investment properties in, parts of Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Mississippi that are a little bit more affordable, but they can cash flow $1,500, $2,000 a month for a $60,000 investment, right? Which, I mean, it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to get that back, of course. But hey, man, it's you're increasing your amount of equity basically overnight, because that property is also going to continue to grow in value, and you're getting to backfill your cash pretty quickly, right? So maybe use half of that mortgage that you're going to have that cash flow and pay your mortgage faster, right? So there's all sorts of ways to leverage this. And that's just one example, but it's a good idea keeping your eyes open, because we all want these mortgage rates to go down. Buyers want it, sellers want it, agents want it, lenders want it. Everyone wants the mortgage rates to go down, except for banks, maybe. But outside of that, guys, but we got to play the hand we're dealt, and it's not a bad hand right now. You just have to be creative and strategic with how you play it.
Well, and a couple more things too. So you have always said that even people that are renting today, you
Mhm.
can kind of get them pretty close to what they're paying for rent within a mile or two, generally speaking, right? There's a few exceptions to that, but you can generally get people into something into home ownership, right?
Right.
Right. The other thing is, I think sometimes we forget that people get married, they get divorced, they have kids, and life changes. I mean, you're going through the same thing, right? I mean, you and your wife are looking to shift a little bit in the Denver metro area, which probably 5 years ago, if I asked you that question, that wouldn't even be an option. Today it is,
Mm.
right? So those are things to think about.
Yeah, and again, if we are going to kind of switch back to people who are in, I need to buy a primary residence mode, which is the bulk what we're going to be working with, right? It's been my experience that lenders are very, very willing to get creative and work very closely with us as agents and with our clients to make something work, man. Like the most competitive price point out there in Denver right now is probably 400 to 450, I would say, right in that ballpark. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. That's probably about what, in my experience, what the most competitive price point is right now, right?
Okay.
So, but even in those price ranges, we're still able to work and negotiate, maybe a seller concession or apply it towards a 2-1 buy down, right? You can even look at properties that have been on the market for a while. Maybe you take your clients out and it's like, hey, we've done the brand new first weekend shopping frenzy thing for a month now, and it's been, mixed results. Why don't we only look at properties that have been on the market for 2 weeks or longer, right? And then you can go out there with maybe a little more negotiating power,
Right.
right?
Right.
For those of us agents who are lucky enough to be on relocation teams out there, man, those companies are doing really, really impressive things for their clients. I have some clients right now that we just closed last week, but their company did a 5-year buy down for them. They did
Oh,
like
wow.
they did like a 4.5 or a 5% buy down that ramped down like about a half a point every year for 5 years. So they are really invested in getting those people into a long-term solution, because do we think it's going to go down in the next 24 months? Sure. But I'm real confident it's going to go down in the next 60 months. You know what I'm saying? So it can really make that, there's ways to overcome the mortgage rate thing, right? And there's ways to circumvent the problem entirely, you know?
Right.
So that's just one example, guys. And so lean on your lenders out there. Again, nothing against banks. They have a lot of money, and sometimes those are the easiest loans to qualify for. But maybe talk to a local lender that your realtor's working with, one of their local partners, because it's been my experience, at least, they're a little more likely to kind of mix it up and rub elbows and talk to sellers agents and work with buyers to be able to negotiate some sort of buy down, right? But
Yeah.
again, those big banks it's worth having that conversation too, even if you're just going to say like, well, hey, I was going to use, so and so local lender because they're talking about a 2-1 buy down. Maybe there's a program that is available at a larger institution that person just didn't think to mention, right? And now that it's probably like, oh, well, we can do something similar to that too, because this was a very large nationwide bank that I'm speaking about right now that was doing that long-term buy down. So
Right.
have those conversations, guys. It's our job as agents to stay in our lane, but maybe like, hey, have you talked to your your lender about, some sort of buy down situation in the rate? Have you talked to your lender about a 403k loan, right? So maybe you go buy something that needs a little bit of work, that needs a little touching up. So maybe the asking price of 400 isn't what it's worth. Maybe we offer 370 and we put 10 or 15 grand into it, and then it's worth 400. So just be creative there. I think that the agents who are having the biggest struggle right now are the ones that are going out every single weekend with the same exact conventional FHA product and not having a close knit relationship with their lender and having, more in-depth conversations with the seller's agent to try to make a deal come together. Right. So it's, and it gets tough. You're trying to keep up with the speed. I get it, but maybe take a breath, start making phone calls on Wednesday instead of Saturday, and try to make something a little more robust happen to solve a problem for your clients, right? Because we can all go out and write, an offer every weekend for 8 weeks straight, and then hopefully one hits. Or we can try to be a little more strategic, have some early conversations, and set some up to maybe it goes a little faster for our clients, remove some of that stress. And you guys, I don't want to be moving here and around the holidays. I want to be able to I want to host Thanksgiving, not be moving boxes, right? So try to get someone in there a little earlier and and build a good plan together.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The other thing too, I think sometimes we forget, there are some buyers in our sphere, whether it's themselves, whether it's family, whether it's business, whatever. There are some that actually are in the position to potentially just purchase and acquire with cash and then do a refinance on the back end, right? To get their money back out of it. And we have done a few of those too. We have had the family member potentially where they've leaned in, made them competitive, boom, right? And then they have their own agreement. They're going to refinance on the back end, right? The other thing too to not always forget about is sometimes geography. I think there's the hot neighborhoods that we all know, but sometimes you get 35 minutes, 40 minutes outside of the Denver core. And there are options out there that, in my opinion, are very reasonably priced. And some of those homes do need some work, right? So there could be for an FHA for 203k loan, potentially. You could have a scenario where you just get it bought and then work on the property and then maybe live in it for 2 years or 3 years and then move on to your next, or keep it as a rental. There's a lot of strategy there. And I think sometimes our buyers too get kind of tunneled. They want to be right here and they think about, well, this might be a challenge for you, in some cases unattainable, but you look over here, you had tons of options over here. So I think us being a consultant and talking through that as a trusted advisor is another way to look at it as well. But also having that dialogue, is there another alternative to funding the purchase? Right? And sometimes people don't even think about it.
Yeah, and we're also, and again, and this one, in my opinion, maybe is a little less common, but it doesn't mean we shouldn't keep our eyes out for it, try to be creative. I'm starting to see some marketing out there from listing agents of like, hey, why don't you assume this loan at 2.8%?
Right.
Now there's some hoops to jump through with that, right? So that's going to be an example of something that needs to have a very in-depth conversation with the listing agent, with the holder of that policy, all that good stuff, right? But it's something to consider, right? Like I don't think that we should take it for granted. I think a lot of us that have been working in this industry for the last 6-8 years here in Denver are so used to just like clicking that little red X box to remove that out of the contract when writing offers, because we just don't even think about it as a possibility, right? But it is, right? So maybe we have some of those conversations about that. Talk to the other side, see, hey, what does this look like? Maybe it doesn't make any sense, guys. But again, it's like anything else, and I think we've all probably said some iteration of this to our clients at all. Is like, oh well, if we offer this, is it gonna be accepted? It's like, well, the answer is always no if we don't ask, right? Like it's the situation cannot get any less convenient than it is today, right? So if you ask, hey, is this loan assumable, and they say, oh, I don't know, or no, it's like, okay, cool, well, thanks for checking,
Right.
Costs me nothing, man, no skin off my teeth. So why not have a conversation? Why not at least ask a question? Right? Because then at the end of the day, we can go back to our clients and say, hey, man, I tried these 10 things, right? And of these 10 things, these 4 are our best options. What do you want to roll with? And then we've done the best for our clients. That's all we can try to do.
Right. And I think, again, the agent that logs into their MLS and looks at the hot sheet or the new listing, it's the same, it's Groundhog Day every day, right? It's like, it is a significant number. Like in Colorado, I think the last number I saw was 44,000 plus, realtors statewide. It is a staggering number of people, right? So your competition, like I used to tell people all the time, let's use Wash Park as an example. If you got 22,000 realtors in the Denver metro area, there's probably 22,000 of them that have at least one person that wants to live in Watch Park, right?
Right.
Right. So it's like, it just becomes a standard of how do you help guide people in the right direction, right? Because there's always a bull market. So let's talk a little bit about one of the things that was kind of an aha, what's been an aha is some stability, right? And so I think to toot our own horn just for a minute. I know we don't do that very often, but we've been very fortunate with our agent roster and a very great agent retention, right?
Mhm.
Over the last 8 years for sure as a brand, but more importantly, a few individuals that have been with us or with me for about 12 years, right? So I think, there's a part of that I think is how we engage with that agent, with he or she, right? So
Mhm.
yes, we do a group business planning, which I think is very valuable. I think talking is very valuable and working through. I also think you and I, for lack of a better term, we split the deck a little bit and we do
Mhm.
individual one-on-ones in business planning, right? And we do that time towards the end of the year to get ready to go into January. Um,
Mhm.
what are your kind of thoughts on that and some other ahas did you have that you took away maybe from the Mojo and some of that planning?
Yeah, definitely. And again, I think the biggest thing we talked about so far is kind of like some of the frustrations we're feeling out there, right? But kind of like we started off talking about, it's important to acknowledge those because our clients are going to feel them too, and it's important to acknowledge these are real feelings and real frustrations people are having. But at the end of the day, if we're going to focus on those, that's a losing strategy,
Yep.
right? So all we can focus on is what we can control. And a big thing we can control is our activities
Right.
and the consistency in which we perform them, right? So, we've talked about it a ton. Our agents have done a really great job of buying in, right? So, like,
Right.
I think a lot of our agents, in our more experienced agents on our team and across our network and across the country, have probably all had experiences where, oh man, I've had a great month or a great year or a great couple years, and then we tend to kind of recede back to the mean. Like maybe you have 3 or 4 closings in August, and then you have nothing till November, right? That's not an uncommon story I'm telling right now, guys. So I don't know. Having no paycheck for 4 months stresses me out, right? Um, and I think a lot of that is a result of having inconsistent and non-measured input, right? So and again, I'm going to kind of coach this for a second because I don't know how else to talk about it. I'm talking about it in a numbers way. So if we are going to say like, hey, if we were just going to say, like, oh, hey, I had a good month, I had 5 closings, great, on to the next, right? Some agents probably make a career out of that and they probably do just fine, right? But I want to make sure that all of our agents have a consistent performance they can measure. So what we really encourage our guys to do is based upon some more business planning, based upon some of our goal setting and some things we've had, some of the things we've been trying, let's come up with, you know, 5 to 8 things that we're going to do every single week, every single month for like 6 months, right? And we're going to track those. I personally, it works best for my personality type to kind of gamify it and assign a point system to it. Maybe you're a checklist person. Maybe you're this, maybe you're that, right? That doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is that you are doing the things, first of all, that you are checking in to make sure those things are being done week to week, and you're tracking, the outcomes. So when we revisit in 6 months, we can say, hey, cool. So you have been doing these 7 things every week for 6 months, right? You've done them at a 80% performance rate, whatever, that just getting them done, right? What have our results been? And of those results, what can we source those results to, right? Are you having buyer and seller meetings from phone calls? Are you having them from client meetings? Are you getting them from handwritten letters? Are you getting them from holding open houses? What are we doing right here, right? Because after 6 months, we have a lot of data. And based upon that data, we can say, like, hey, of these 7 things, these 4 are working. I'm going to keep doing those. These 3 things are not working. I'm going to cut those and either replace them, or I'm going to, devote more time and more effort to making phone calls. So instead of making 5 a day, I'm going to make 10. Okay. That gives us a really good, strong performance of data. And we can understand, hey, I know if I put in XYZ, I'm going to get ABC as a result pretty consistently, right? Versus if we just kind of like do stuff and then we hold our hands open waiting for money to fall out of the sky, we don't know what made the money fall, right? Or what made the client conversations happen. It's a exercise of utility, right? So I would rather you have one closing in August instead of three, but know what you did in August that led to that closing, so you can have one in September, one in October, two in November, two in December, three in January, versus having three in August and then nothing till November. And then when I say, hey, well, you know what changed, man? We had a really great August. We were having conversations. We were showing property. What's going on? You're like, oh, I don't know, man. I'm doing the same stuff. Well, you're probably not doing the same stuff. That's probably why you have no clients now. So we really ask our clients to be really, or our clients, our agents to be really diligent and thoughtful about what activities they're going to commit to. And then every week, and I hold myself to this, like, hey, I said I was going to do these 7 things this week. Did I do 7? Did I do 6? Did I do 2? And if I did less than those 7, why? Did I run out of time? Did I have something come up that conflicted? Did I get sick? Did I just not do them? And did I not do them because I'm not committed to them? I'm not fun. I'm not engaged with them. Because that's the other side of the coin, guys. If I can tell you right now, if you wanted to go pay for a list of expireds and make 500 calls a day, you would get clients and you would make money. Is that how you want to conduct your business, though? Some people do a great job at that. Some people don't mind at all. But some people are going to hate that, regardless of what the paycheck says. So the goal is to come up with a measurable list of activities that we can do that are going to yield business, but we don't mind doing every single day for 6 months, right? Because otherwise, then we're not having a work-life balance, we're not having fun, regardless of what the paycheck says.
Right. And I think time blocking is huge. I mean, one of the things that we talked about was, we all can just admit today it's not an 8-hour day job, right?
No.
But we touch our business in some way, shape, or form 7 days a week in somewhat shape or form. It could be breaking bread, it could be by you're out with clients, it could be social media, it could be phone calls, whatever, right? But one of the things that is so real is when we earn that trust of that buyer or seller, and we ultimately find and obtain the property to put under contract, that's like the best day in the transaction, right? It's like you met your goal. You met your goal with your client, seller or buyer, right? The rest of it, the back end is process, right? So to keep that same environment, right, we have to do the same things that are repeatable and trackable and measurable, as you just alluded to, right? And I think what happens, what I've seen in my experience is we get these big bursts of energy for 45 days or 60 days. Then we get busy as agents. And then all of a sudden, a week goes by and 2 weeks go by and 3 weeks go by. Well, we have a closing, but we haven't done the work that made us successful, right? For 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So you're in a constant re-ramp over and over again for that yo-yo, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I think, is just understanding what's happening in your market, right? And just things that are coming out, right? There are things in our industry that are happening, just being knowledgeable about those. There was some really big news out of Denver in the last week about some of those high rises in downtown Denver. Some of them are going to get converted to residential, right? Now, that's not happening tomorrow. I understand, but I would start to educate myself on those now, right? Same thing with there's some new things being annexed an hour east of Denver, right? There's things happening. I'm not sure if you're a car guy. We think we talked about this. There's a massive automobile thing going in east of DIA, right? Where you've got people with these Raptor trucks and people with these high-end sports cars and the man caves and the garages. That's all being built out there, right? And so there's a lot of, and that's all real estate. So I think just being knowledgeable about what's happening is extremely important, right? And being able to dissect the information. And you and I've talked about this. That's one thing that's a little bit of a hurdle that we have to get over is there is so much misinformation, whether it comes, whatever source it comes from, it doesn't matter. I think some of our buyers and sellers are confused. Some of the things that I get asked, I'm like, where did you come up with that? It's not true at all.
And it's important to pick your thing, man. I think a lot of us try to be all things to all people, and that's also a mistake in my mind. Like car guy, good. I don't know shit, man. I don't know about cars. It's just never been my thing. I've kind of tried to pretend it was my thing for a while. I just don't care. Like my car gets me from point A to point B, and I think they're really cool. I think they're really fun, but I don't know what my net worth would have to be for me to go spend $100,000 on a car, but it would be a lot more than I have now, so But
Yeah.
what I do like is I like sports, dude. Like it was like I think I had this conversation with you. I was joking around. I was like, man, I'm really glad I met and married Helen because I got an email like about a month ago that was like, Andrew, do you want to spend, $20,000 on 2 season tickets to the Broncos and you get all you can eat food, all you can, food and beverages are all included, you get free parking. I was like, well, I could probably talk myself into this 5 years ago, so or splitting with somebody at the very least, right? But yeah, so figure out what your thing, what your passion is, and talk about it, man. Because there's going to be plenty of people that want to talk about cars. Some people want to talk about boats. People want to talk about sports. Some people want to talk about the new music venue that's down in the Springs, right? And the one in Castle Rock that are pretty cool, pretty fun, right? Good place to go see a show. So figure out what your thing is, and I think what we're talking about, guys. And Michael made a really good point that I didn't address is like it can be really easy to like fill up your day with all these activities and then not follow through with them when you get a little bit busier. I am a big proponent of this, and I'll kind of steal this from Wilson Miller, one of our lender contacts out here. All your money making activities, all of your outbound prospecting work should be able to be done in 2 hours a day.
Yep.
And I'm talking everything, guys. Phone
Yep.
calls, handwritten notes. How long do you hold open houses open for, Michael? I don't hold them open 4 hours.
Nope.
2 hours, 11 to 1, 1 to 3. Those are the times I will hold open houses open, right? Maybe a 4 to 6 on a Friday if I'm feeling froggy, right? But still, 2 hours, man.
Right.
So every single one of these things should be done in 2 hours a day.
Right.
We're pretty busy dudes. I've got 2 hours to give to prospecting so that I don't starve in 2 months, right?
Right.
So
Right.
just
No, I
commit to
totally
the time.
agree. Well,
Yeah.
let's kind of shift that a little bit. So, we talk, we really believe that we are there to serve our agents, right? And we're there to enrich their lives, too. So, how one of the things that we're working on is our brokerage growth,
Mhm.
right? So there are agents that are in a brokerage potentially that maybe they plateaued, right? Or they've kind of done a lot of these things. They had a bunch of energy when they first got in the business, and now we're 24 months in, 36 months in, and they need kind of a refocus, right? We've got agents that are brand new going through real estate school that are going through their first 90 days, their first 120 days, and what does that look like, right? But one of the things that I think, or I'm going to ask you the question is, what is something that a value that we offer, whether you're a brand new agent or whether you're a seasoned agent, to help take one's business to the next level so that he or she can thrive?
Yeah, I do think that the business plan we've been talking about is probably the biggest thing we try to offer because we do it on a we conduct the initial strategy in like a broad spectrum team based study. But when we're conducting someone's individual plan, when we're conducting these, daily activity charts we're talking about, that is done on an individual basis, right? And I think the other thing that we really do is we make tracking and being successful in these activities extremely easy, right? Through things like Moxie Engage and Moxie Present, it
Right.
almost runs itself, guys. All you have to do is log in every day, look at your list of stuff, do that list of stuff, and then you're out, right?
Right.
So it makes it really easy to engage with our technology. And I think we also do our best to make sure our agents are highly, highly informed, highly connected to their market, right? So through things like Matthew Gardner giving not only a nationwide report basically every month, but also a quarterly report that takes a really deep dive into the Denver and the Mountain region, and also obviously having our annual update that's going to give us all kind of a ton of information, and just having access to that kind of a resource is pretty rare. So we really, again, we encourage our agents to have an individual plan because everyone's going to look different. Some of our agents are full-time realtors. Some of our agents are experienced. Some of our agents are making the transition from another career. And those people all need different sorts of assistance to be successful. So individualized plans, backing them up with technology and ever developing technology, as you and I have talked about recently, we'll probably talk about next week, as well as just making sure they're informed, right? Making sure they're connected to the pulse of their market so they can best help other clients.
Yeah.
And we spend a lot of time and a lot of money and a lot of effort as a company to make sure that our agents can do that. Versus I think it's really easy to cut up into either a small hyper local company that's only going to focus on the 5 mile radius around their office, or a super super huge nationwide company that's going to take such a broad spectrum approach that you can't really see the forest through the trees. So we really try to balance that, and I think not a lot of companies have that kind of focus.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. The other thing too is we're a little unique that we have some upward mobility in leadership, right? So if somebody wants to be a team lead, if they're at that place in their life, we can assist with that. If they want to be a managing broker, we can assist with that, right? If they would want to have their own franchise, we could do that too. So, it's not a cookie cutter, one size fits all. And depending upon people's long-term planning, sometimes determines how we coach them and lead them as well. And so I think that's another great asset that we have from a long-term perspective.
Yeah, and again, and we really try to. I mean, I'll commend you on this. You're the one of the first offices I know to really take into full commitment to this hybrid approach to real estate, right? So we have a smaller office that's sleek, but there's still plenty of room for people to come in and work. We have, open group work areas. We have a private office, a private conference room, but we're not having so much overhead that we have an empty office all the time, and that our agents. I mean, we can be honest with you guys. You guys are all adults out here. Your monthly fee pays for your company's stuff, right? So if you don't use it, you're probably doing yourself a disservice. But also, if that stuff is inflated relative to what's required, you're probably overpaying, right? So we really wanted to, and we didn't just downsize and keep everything the same. We downsized and gave our agents, we cut their monthly commitment, right? We cut their monthly overhead. We kept their cap rate basically the same, and so we really didn't try to make Windermere Metro Denver more money. We try to give our agents more money, more time, and more freedom. And we centralized and downsized and put the money back in their pocket. So I really want to commend you on that. And our agents are really, taken to it, right? Some agents come in once a month. Some agents come in a couple times a week. Some agents like myself are in there multiple times per week.
Right.
And it's really whatever they need. It's open. Like some of our new agents are in there a lot more.
Right.
Seasoned agents, Rob's in there 1 or 2 days a week, depending on the week, and then some agents we see during big meetings, and that's it. And that's all totally fine, right?
Okay.
It's whatever they want to do, man. We rarely require you to come in, maybe once a quarter, maybe, but we really offer all of our meetings hybrid. So if they want to log in on Zoom, they can. Yeah. We never made the investment to get us a corporate Zoom program. We use it, so I think that's a big example of one way we really try to be flexible and try to be really forward-thinking in the market. Another one that's probably the sexy topic right now is how is artificial intelligence and computer learning going to impact real estate? And Windermere is really trying to be in front of that, right? And it's, I think the answer we've gotten so far based upon several meetings and several classes is, hey, it's not as it is today, your jobs are safe, right? But that doesn't mean you should like poo-poo it or not learn and not adapt this as a tool to benefit your clients. Because tell you what, if you're not going to do it, I am, right? I am leveraging, artificial intelligence for my clients every single day in this job. And it makes my job a little bit easier, and it does impact the marketability of their home. So we try to make it available to our agents so they can learn. And that's just one of many, many examples of things that are changing in the future. We've already been forward thinking about our personal contracts and our addenda so that they're very clear and open and fair to our clients. I don't know that every company can say that, right? So a few things that are just going off the top of my head that I think that we do that separates us and really makes our agents prepared for what's the direction real estate's going.
Yeah, no, that was very well said, and I couldn't agree more. So, well, great. So, what we got Labor Day weekend here? I know you guys are going to a wedding out of town.
Yeah, well, we're here in Bozeman. The wedding's this afternoon, so we're here in Bozeman. And then we'll hang around here for a day or so, and then we'll go visit the, grandma and grandpa. Cal hasn't seen them in a while, so they're over in Boise, and then we'll loop back through. So it's a big long driving trip. Should be fun though. Got my oil changed yesterday in time to probably do it again right when I get home, so that's nice.
Right.
Loop for life. Thank you, GMC Financial. So going good, man. Good, a lot of car time with the fam, so it'll be fun, and then get back just in time to get ready for some of the big holidays. Obviously, we had Labor Day, but I feel like it's Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, bam, 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 all coming right up for us. So should be good.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
moving in November, so all sorts of prep for that.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot going on. So good. Well, awesome. Well, great. Well, I think hope everybody has an amazing weekend, and we'll catch you guys on the other side. I don't. We may take a week off, but we'll definitely get back in the mix here here in the next 10 days.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.